Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. And today we are at our Sunport, most folks will recognize. And of course, a reminder, this is actually one of the City of Albuquerque's departments. And so we're going to be featuring as our deep dive topic an update in general on Corona and related activities in our aviation department. And our featured expert on this, of course, is our aviation director, Nika Allen. Now, I want to begin with some updates from Central New Mexico. And to begin with, I want to mention Catholic Charities adult education programs have moved completely online for the summer semester. This is a remote learning model that students can complete their courses in terms of high school equivalency, something that's been around a long time, but it's a very important program for our city. AccuPlacer is the acronym that they use, and that has to do with conversational English, second language programs, and citizenship preparation. Catholic Charities now offering all of this available at home. And I want to remind folks that registration for online classes is going to be May 11th to May 24th for all new and returning students. And again, we'll jump around with these updates. This next one is around our transit system. So we now have 13 buses that are running. As you know, we're operating on our Saturday schedule. We're going to announce how that's going to change tomorrow. But in the meantime, I want to remind everyone that we're using 25 helper buses. These are smaller buses that are deployed on various routes to make sure that whenever there is a overcrowded bus, we actually can overflow to the helper bus. It's actually working out quite well, but I want to remind folks there's high volume, 25 extra buses helping on these main routes. And again, what this is showing is we're flexible and resilient with respect to our bus routes, but we also recognize that as we move into different phases of reopening, we're going to actually be adjusting transit. So stay tuned for more on that tomorrow. Relatedly, art route training is continuing. You might have seen a bunch of art buses out. They're not picking up passengers right now. They're training on the route. As a reminder, every time we get new drivers, we have to train them. And the art route is one that you have to train on the route. It's not like we can train art bus drivers, out on other streets. So we use that for training. We're doing a lot of that now while the corridors are more empty. Also, as a reminder, we're concerned about pedestrian safety. Remember that before Corona happened, we had all these wrecks on the art route. We knew that was going to be a challenge. We said we were going to adapt. We have been. And so you will now see 8, they're called pin curbs. They're like a double wide curb that now block a lot of the high problematic areas where cars were cutting through. We also do not want pedestrians ever on those, but should they need a safe space, they can obviously hop on the other side of the pin curb. And so anyway, again, we don't want people ever standing on those, but at least it means something for emergencies. So those are now all done, and most of them are double yellow lined. They're where the double yellow line routes used to be up and down Central. These also, of course, will prevent left-hand turns and U-turns, literally. So we told people not to do it. Now you physically can't do it. All right, so in also some other items, our Wi-Fi program, Wi-Fi on Wheels. This again is Sunvan trucks that are parked at locations that are beaming out Wi-Fi to a parking lot. Those are now at 70 locations all over the city, all available on our website, and they include the 27 schools where APS is doing grab-and-go lunch. We want to remind folks they're there from 8 to 2, and anyone can use them. They're really intended for parents, but it's okay, anyone can use them. And as school winds down, and as these grab-and-go locations wind down, we'll move in sync with them. So as long as there's lunch, grab-and-go sites, we'll have the Sunvan trucks there for wireless internet, and when those are phased out, we'll be testing out some different places where we can put our drive-up Wi-Fi programs. Our Senior Affairs Department passed out their 100,000th meal served during Corona. So great job to all the Senior Affairs team, and a reminder of all the folks that we're taking care of. And actually they just passed that. They're now at 105,000. A few other bright spots to mention. Our Emergency Operations Center has received 6,317 face coverings through our Emergency Operations Center for distribution. These are coming in from private companies. They're coming in, some through purchase, some through donation. We actually got a bunch of different types of face coverings from our sister cities in Taiwan. We'll do some pictures and so forth on that. People continue to step up with that. We've also provided in the city of Albuquerque 33,000 hours of childcare for first responders and healthcare workers. We've also logged in 1,000 volunteer hours since we started on Corona, so a great job for folks there. Now we're going to begin our deep dive topic for today with respect to aviation. For your question and answers too, we're also joined by our COO, Lawrence Royale. I know in the airport we're able to really socially distance, so it's good to see some airport staff over there as well that we have who've been working hard to keep our airport running. A couple of reminders about the airport. One, there are heavy restrictions that are in place, but the airport is open. I actually get questions, why haven't you closed the airport? Let's just remind folks about what the airport does. First and foremost, all emergency travel is allowed all across the country. And the decision to close the airport or not is a federal decision. So we're obviously not going to do something like block off the streets or tell the employees they can't go to work. So just saying that is a federal decision whether or not you close an airport. We decided not to take some of these more drastic kind of draconian measures. We're just going to follow the guidelines. And as we shared before, traffic is so far down. There's almost no one at the airport. So let's just be real here behind us. Unfortunately, as you can see, that's actually a worker. There's literally no one in the Great Hall of the airport right now at noon on a Thursday. So a couple of things. One, just a reminder how it's okay to have the airport open because there's very few people here in terms of distancing and health. But also, it's very unfortunate, right? I mean, no one wants to see an empty airport, but it's a sign of the times, and it's happening all across America and the world. Now, a couple of other things to share about the Sunport. I want to remind people there's normally 5 million visitors that go through the Sunport. So the reality is in New Mexico, we do have some smaller regional airports, but by and large, the entire state is serviced through here. There's a minor exception. Some of Las Cruces traffic does go through El Paso, but a lot of it still goes through the Sunport. So it's truly the state's airport, and the city is proud to have it here in Albuquerque and to operate it. I also want to remind folks we have 2 airports. There's something called Double Eagle out on the west side. That historically has mostly been specialized flights, private flights. We, of course, run all the Bernalillo County and APD air support out of there. There's a lot of things that actually happen out there. Our director, who oversees that airport as well, can touch on what's happening at Double Eagle, but it is open. It is being used, but also traffic is definitely down. Now, want to also remind folks, too, a little bit about finances. We're going to talk about Sunport finances. The Sunport is an enterprise fund, so they move differently sometimes than the city. Historically, over our administration and a little bit before, the Sunport was doing very good. But it just recovered from the recession back in 2008 in terms of traffic volumes over the last couple of years. So we're in a situation where we just caught up to where we were 10 years ago. And we're very excited about that. The administration's done a great job with that. But of course, now everything is down. So the Sunport has kind of gone from, a rising star in the city and in the state to now, looped in all sorts of uncertainty with the rest of us. But want to mention that goes for Double Eagle too. All our volumes and so forth were up. So we also have completed, I think, all our upgrades. So with a minor exception of maybe a sign or a light fixture here and there, that project is complete. We have a slew of other projects that are sort of in the queue but on hold at this time. Now, let's see. I also want to mention that, again, we had really caught up. We were really proud of the fact that our ground traffic had caught up, but we're not quite there. And now after Corona, it's going to be a longer road. So Nika Allen's going to speak to this, but I want to also touch on, we have a general aviation function. That is the private aviation, so Keller Aviation Atlantic, which directionally is out at the other end of the airport. Their volumes are also down, although not nearly as down as sort of the public traffic through here. And also being a transportation hub in the center of New Mexico, in the long run, we believe works in their favor. the reality is a lot of people are going to be flying privately more, and so we're optimistic about some of the investments that we're looking at out on the private aviation side and with cargo. So as a reminder, UPS, FedEx, and Southwest, who does cargo, we service the entire state of New Mexico, and in some cases Durango and some other surrounding cities, all the cargo out of here. So as you can imagine, commercial cargo might be down, residential cargo is way up. So these providers, whether it's Southwest or FedEx or UPS, they're extremely busy right now. And so we checked on them this morning, and I think one good thing about our airport is we also are diversified. So we have revenue streams coming off all of that, whether it's private aviation or whether it's cargo, and so it's a good thing for the city of Albuquerque. So with some details on that, let me bring up our Director of Aviation, Nika Allen. Nika, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the state of the aviation industry in general right now. And so I'm going to have some PowerPoint slides that you can all take a look at as well, which kind of helps describe what I'm talking about. There really has been a huge, as many of you probably know, a very dramatic impact on global passenger traffic in general right now at airports across the world. TSA, who monitors how many people are coming into an airport and boarding planes every day, has told us that their daily screenings in April were down between 94 and 96%. So essentially nothing compared to what we're used to having. And unfortunately, these decreases have impacted our financials as well, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to show you, as we saw this kind of downward trend, at first, if you look at the month in March, we had a good, decent half of a month that was there, and so if you come and find our stats online, you'll see for the month of March, we were actually only down 50%. April, of course, was much worse. We were in that 96% down area. From 9/11, which is a big monumental moment for the aviation industry and for many of you, it took a long time to actually recover within the aviation industry from that one incident. And that incident, when you go back and look at how people were flying, really the airports were only down and almost closed for about a week. But it actually took a full 3 years for the aviation industry itself to recover from what we saw during 9/11. Then we had the 2008 financial crisis, and we actually, as our mayor mentioned, we were just at the point of recovering from that 2008 financial crisis. In addition, another one that I don't have on my slides today is we had the Wright Amendment, and that was an amendment that sunsetted, and it had to do with Southwest flying in and out of their new hub, Dallas Love Field. And so that also specifically interrupted traffic patterns here in Albuquerque. And so we in New Mexico have seen 3 major downturns over the past 20 years here. And so luckily now, although I'm going to present some bad news, I do want to say that the Sunport has done this before, and we can do it again, and we're going to be able to get through any hard times that are thrown our way. A little bit about our estimated implaned passenger numbers and our financial impact for the airport. So compared to 2019, which was a fabulous year for us, again, we were up almost to our record highs of 2008 days, but our projected decrease for this year in its entirety is about 29%. 29%. Next year, we also anticipate seeing a large decrease in activity, 38%, which will be bigger actually than what we're seeing happening right now, because we are aware in the aviation industry that a lot of people are going to not want to travel, and we're going to focus on making only emergency traveling the only reason that we leave our state. And that's probably the best thing for now, but definitely moving forward, we're going to be watching these numbers. We also estimate that actually going all the way out into 2022, we may actually see a 20% decrease in that year as well. So right now we're looking at approximately 3 years is all the work that we've been done. We're thinking it's going to take about 3 years. But of course, as you all know, things are changing day to day, and we are also having to adjust day to day here. And so for all the metrics that I'm providing you today, they're only as good as the data that I'm giving them in all of our proceedings and all the work that we've been doing. So if you want to look at the graph, we have estimated that, passenger traffic March, April, May was near zero. June and July is when we're starting to hopefully see some sort of upward trend. And so looking at that upward trend, obviously I think that that's optimistic. We're definitely seeing that some states are opening, some states are not. And so all of those rules and restrictions are going to deeply impact the aviation industry and all of our trends that we're seeing. So we are looking at this holistically. We're looking at actually the years 2020 through 2022 right now, and I'm estimating that our airport and the aviation department will lose approximately $31 million in revenue throughout those 3 years. Yes, this is a lot of money that we are going to lose. Yes, it is going to impact our bottom line, but luckily the federal government with the CARES funding has given the Sunport a grant to the tune of $19.7 million to help keep us afloat during these trying times. And so we're very grateful that that money has been allocated to us, and that will fill about 2/3 of the gap that we were estimating with that $31 million decrease. So we are pleased. Of course, obviously, the next step is really a lot of tough management decisions and making sure that we are very prudent and tight with our money here at the Sunport and making sure that we can last and as long as we need to get out of this tumultuous time. All right. I want to also talk a little bit about the CARES Act grant for airports specifically. You all are going to hear a lot of information from various parties. There's PPP loans that were given out, other various grants to local governments, but the CARES Act grants for airports themselves were allocated differently. So we actually were part of a $10 billion fund for U.S. airports across the country to help us deal with the COVID-19 response pandemic and maintaining our day-to-day operations, because we know how important the aviation industry is to the overall economy. So this grant is actually a grant where we are not issued that money up front, but we are allocated that money. We get to charge expenses. We show the FAA our expenses, and then they will reimburse us with that grant amount. All of our funds can be used on any valid airport expense, so we're very grateful that that money is flexible for us and that we can use it to pay our staff, so we're hopefully not having to look at furloughs or layoffs because we have some of this extra money, and it's going to be going to necessities like keeping people safe here in this airport and making sure that we can get our airport the safest and cleanest place that anyone could be traveling. We are also, a requirement of that I do want to mention is that we are actually required by law to maintain 90% of our employees through the end of the year. So I appreciate that about this grant allocation as well, that the federal government has really been looking out for employment. I'm grateful for that. Just want to touch a little bit about some of the heightened cleaning and sanitation procedures that we've really taken on at this airport. We are taking this very seriously. We understand that this did originally probably come in through travel. And so having COVID-19, we definitely don't want that spreading through our airport anymore. And so we've really implemented enhanced cleaning and sanitation procedures. We're really focusing on our high touch point areas of the airport, your handrails, water fountains, things like that. We also have significantly increased the cleaning of our restrooms and all of our holding areas where you sit at your gate. We have hand sanitizer stations all across the airport, so you can sanitize your hands after you have to touch anything. And the TSA checkpoint has been adding some additional things to help people have to pass things back and forth, less touch points, and making sure that you can get through quickly and safely. We're also looking at a bunch of new procedures moving forward as we're in our recovery phase, and so we are looking at very creative ways to actually disinfect the entire terminal nightly. We're going to look at fogging the terminal, so we're very excited about that, looking at working with a new local company to start some of those. We're also installing plexiglass dividers for all of those touch point areas. When you're working with the airlines, you'll see those come up soon. We will have the 6-foot distancing markers on the floor, and we are reducing the seating capacity in certain areas to add for that extra space. Also, we additionally have all of our Sunport employees wearing masks, and moving forward, you're going to see that with TSA agents as well. And so we're very excited to be definitely protecting everyone from our employee experience side. This grant also is going to help us to pay for a lot of these new costs that we anticipate coming in, and so we're very grateful for that. We are moving, even though this all sounds bad today probably, we are really moving in a positive direction, and we have been working on recovery since day one. I want to mention that the way that travel looked before is not going to be the way that travel looks when we are done with this. And so I do not know what that looks like, but I can tell you I'm on calls every single day with other airport directors across the country, with TSA, with the FAA, constantly monitoring what is the situation, how are we going to be screening people in and out of airports across the country. But we really are here part of the national airspace system, and it is important that we maintain with the rest of the national airspace system. And so our priority has always been making traveling an important and safe experience for everyone that has come into the Sunport, and we continue to do that, and we look forward to welcoming you back to the airport in a very safe and healthy manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nika. And again, I think we're grateful to have these additional funds. And we also have a team in place that knows what to do with them, and also that, is prepared to operate the airport in a lot of different scenarios, including this scenario. So we have a lot of confidence out here at the Sunport, but obviously it's a different kind of world in every way, especially even for aviation. But again, also a reminder that we have a lot going on here besides just passenger travel, and so that helps us out too. So with that, I think we're going to move to our Q&A session, and takeout yesterday was Taj Mahal, and I think other than that, we'll just do questions, and we have Lawrence. We'll see what the questions are. And let's see, anything you want to add? Okay, we do have some stuff to add, so let's hear from our COO.
I just wanted to add, just for the traveling public, as Nika mentioned, that one of the most important, if we will, changes that we'll see is really relies on the public really being patient and working with each other as we are loading planes and getting baggage at baggage claim, etc. The social distancing is super important. Also being conscientious about, as we gradually open up our concession areas and our retail areas, that again, the social distancing and ensuring that you're mindful of your fellow citizen and the distance between people as they are ordering food, etc. All those little pieces of what we do every day that maybe we've taken for granted before are going to be super important, and we really need to be really mindful as this facility will eventually become obviously what it was before, which is a lot of passengers, a lot of folks here. And so we just want to make sure that folks are just patient about that process, because that really is what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us working together to help keep each other healthy and to be mindful of each other's space, if you will, as you're going to this facility. And then the last piece of it is, as the mayor mentioned, this is a huge economic part of New Mexico's economy. Keeping this facility open and operating full time is an important piece of what we do to contribute to the growth and development of our state, and to keep New Mexico connected with the rest of the world. And so it is super important for us to make sure that we are always vigilant about what we're doing here and how we're doing that. And that is a big part of what we're going to be asking the public to help us with, is to make sure that we're all courteous with each other as this facility becomes more and more, if you will, opened up to the community.
Okay, questions from folks? Yes.
So there's still a $10 million shortfall even with the federal funds that's expected, is that, can we just eat that loss, or is there other revenue sources we're looking at, or is that $10 million, while we're retaining 90% employees, I don't know, feasible? Do we got to do something to make that up?
So the question is really around sort of this $10 million and the difference that we have right now, and I think Nika actually can field that.
Thank you for that question. Great point. So luckily the airport has quite a few ways of generating revenue, not just through our passengers. And so we're really taking this time to look at what are the other revenue generating opportunities that we have here. We have land. Can we lease it? Can we work on new innovative projects and ideas? And so we're definitely looking at all of those things right now, putting a focus on some of our contracts and some of the other things that are going to be unique to building back where we are. In addition, one thing I want to mention is we're hoping this isn't the only grant that we see. It may not be through the CARES funding directly, but there's lots of other opportunities for airports to get grants. We receive additional funds called AIP, which are Airport Improvement Grant Funds as well, and so there's been additional dollars added to those programs as well. So we may be able to move some money around from capital projects, and I think we'll be able to make up that $10 million. That's my prediction right now. The question will be, does that $31 million deficit get worse, and then we're working in a different direction, or can I just make that up and find other monies? We also have some great environmental projects going on right now that we've been able to hopefully receive some funding on, so we'll have some more information about that soon.
But it is important to try to make up that $10 million however we can, right?
It most certainly is important to make up that money. No, we would just not walk away and say, oh, sorry, we can't find the money. We're going to work very hard to make sure that we can recreate that money and find any hole that we have, we're going to fill it.
I would just add, too, I think the good news is we have time to work on that. So to use a Sunport analogy, we have plenty of runway to deal with this challenge, and that's a good thing. Question is how many daily departures, for example, are today as opposed to last year?
Thank you for that question, Jessica. So right now we're looking at our daily departures at a little less than half capacity that we used to see if you're looking at a year ago. And so if we used to have 75, 80 flights a day, now we're looking closer to like 40, 37. And so it does change a little bit day by day. Flights are getting canceled regularly right now if there's no one on the plane. But part of the CARES Act funding that was so important for airlines is it did require that they maintain a minimum level of service to all states and all airports. And so that's been important for us, and we've been able to maintain, you can still get anywhere. If you need to fly somewhere, you can still get anywhere, and that's one of the biggest things that the FAA and the federal government in putting this plan together wanted to get across. So we were very grateful that they did add those metrics into the CARES Act funding, and that we're still seeing approximately 50% of our flights that we had before.
An additional question for Dyer at the Journal. Are you concerned that the Sunport will have trouble restoring the flights lost right now once this passes?
The question is, are we concerned about having some of these flights restored that have been canceled? And Nika can chime in on this as well, but I just want to say we're definitely concerned, right? We were after more flights. Our airport was growing again for the first time in a decade. And so for us, this is, again, part of our broader economic development thesis for all of New Mexico. And so it's going to be a challenge, but I think the good news is we're in a relative position much better than a lot of other cities. And again, we have the capacity, et cetera. We have all sorts of fueling and runway advantages that, at least if there is competition between other cities, we stand in a very good position when that happens. But the overall industry is down. We're going to be down too.
So I think no airport director in the country is not nervous about their service levels and where they have access to. I think that is going to be something that we take day by day. We're going to certainly come up with a strategy. We are in constant communication with our airline partners all across the country and talking to them on a regular basis about how they're starting to see the new air service kind of shake out for communities. And that's something that I think even the airlines are still very much in their discovery phase. Right now, obviously, as I mentioned, they're being mandated by the federal government to fly a certain number of flights. What happens when that goes away? And so that's going to be a big question for all of us and for every airport. And it will be interesting to see what happens there. I do think that we have a unique opportunity, hopefully, to capitalize on some traffic. Albuquerque, as long as we continue to come back and fly, passengers, how many flights that we have and the destinations they go are directly determined by the people of this community and where you guys are going. So if you continue to demand service to various areas and you continue to travel as you did before to all of those various locations around the country, you will see those routes come back to us. But it is going to be very interesting to watch all of the airlines decide how they are going to behave in the future and what model they use for their routes and for bringing passengers to where they need to be.
So just two other comments related to this in case there are additional questions. One, I just want to remind everyone, right, so we're the only major airport in about 1,000 square miles. So we do compete with smaller regional airports, whether it's smaller towns in New Mexico or smaller towns that have airports like Durango or border towns that are close to us. In this environment, we actually stand to pick up the flights they're losing. So again, it's not a good thing in general, but it does help the Sunport. The Sunport regionally, we're the biggest fish in 1,000 square miles. So if there's challenges in other airports, we're going to actually soak up that capacity. So that is a good thing for the Sunport. I also want to mention too, with respect to the finances, just want to remind everyone, this is an enterprise fund, so that $10 million is not related to the city's general fund, right? So when we quote our numbers at the city, it does not include the Sunport. And actually, there's a bunch of legal reasons why they're separate. So we can't really borrow from the Sunport, and they can't really borrow from us. So just a reminder about how that works. Yeah.
Kind of a general COVID question. New Mexico is doing really well in testing compared to some other states, and the governor has encouraged essential workers to get tested, and there's now antibody testing going on. I'm curious, have you been tested at all, or have you done any of the coronavirus or the antibody testing?
So I have, the question is, have I been tested given the testing's available? I have been tested. It was obviously negative. And so I haven't had the antibody testing yet, but we are making sure, for example, like in our police department, any first responder and any essential worker, which is like 3/4 of the city, they can have a test anytime they need it. And we've had hundreds of people take us up on it. We're probably over 1,000 city employees who've been tested.
What was your personal experience like getting tested?
Well, it depends on the kind of test you take. My personal experience, just you got to be ready. I had the nasal swab, and it is much more invasive than you're thinking. And so it doesn't really hurt, but it really surprises you. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, what just happened? And also your reflexes to cough, which is why the face guard. So I was coughing everywhere, and it's intense. And then I don't know if everyone has to do it twice, but I got it twice. So I had to do it again a few minutes later. Okay, I think with that, again, things might change a little bit, but our game plan now, we know, I believe the governor is going to be speaking later today. We as a city have mapped out our reopening plan. We are still in the preparation phase, so we are prepared. We did kind of our youth and summer and children stuff Monday. Tomorrow, we plan on rolling out for the rest of the city. And so our game plan is to be at City Hall tomorrow at 11:30 to map out the city's reopening. It'll focus on the phase one or whatever is outlined or not, or if we're still in preparation phase, it'll just be how we're prepared for the next phase. But people will know what that looks like for the city of Albuquerque tomorrow, either in preparation or in whatever kind of comes out. So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow at 11:30. All right, thank you so much.